What is the biggest lie about money you think we're being told?
Usually in the finance space as well, you always hear the 1% of the 1%. Just by nature of how life is structured, 100% cannot be 1%, right? So there's still going to be that elite few. However, if you stay comfortable within the 99%, and the 99% will keep you comfortable because misery likes company, it takes you to step out and say, hey, I'm going to do this.
Do you think we're all capable in certain way?
Are we all capable?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do you think so?
As I said, they're principles. You just need to apply the principle.
Recently, we wound down bailing and key conversations we started having towards the end of the tree when we were thinking about it was, are we riding a dead horse? By looking at the business's book, how would you tell if this business is going to make it or fail?
It's about, are you even able to meet your business expenses on a monthly basis? Are you able to pay your staff? Are you able to pay for electricity? Are you able to keep your rent? Those sorts of things, right? It's not even necessarily about making profit or loss right now. At some point, it comes down to, do we really think there's something here?
Welcome to Becoming a CEO podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Simi Olu-Ojo, a senior accountant and an auditor at one of the big four, working with clients in the mining, oil and gas, and tech industry. Once again, Simi Olu, welcome to Becoming a CEO podcast.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Now, Simi, for someone that hasn't met you before, never knew you, what would you like them to know about you?
Let me say looks can be deceiving because I say that because I get or I have gotten feedback sometimes that my exterior kind of gives like a wall, a barrier. I might look like someone that doesn't necessarily appreciate, I don't want to say appreciate relationships, but you know, there are some people that you see and they say, for want of a better word, they have a resting bitch face. Not like I think I do, but most people just think that I'm unapproachable. So I think that's one thing I might want to correct. Don't let the outside fool you as to who I am inside. There's so much more about me than what you see on the exterior. So, and just by nature of my personality, I'm not usually the one to want to make the first move in terms of, you know, striking up a conversation or making relationships or, you know, building them. But I value them a lot. So most of my close friends are those that I always say have badged in. You know, they're the ones that the extroverts that just badge in and insert themselves and, you know, we've built those relationships over the years. So that's one thing I would say I would like people to know about me. Don't judge me by just looking at me from afar and thinking, you know, making up your mind about me. Get to know me first, and I guess we'll go from there.
How much of this has been influenced by your career? Because working in the industry you work, there's a whole lot of, I won't say secrecy, but confidentiality, I would say.
Yeah, confidentiality
and
is
so
a big part.
you don't want to come present in certain ways, perhaps because there are quite a few information you get your preview to about a certain organization and things, and probably that could rub off on your personality, and people could then start thinking in certain, I don't know.
Well, I think by nature, well, most people assume that accountants are very serious people and they just, you know. So I wouldn't say that my job or my career has impacted my personality. I would say maybe my personality just suits the career that I'm in. But it also doesn't mean that I can't be friends with people or I can't have a jovial relationship with people because I have information that I don't want people to be privy to. I'm not carrying that information around. It's all stored up in my head or, you know, wherever it needs to be, if it's fiscal. And it's just knowing what you've signed up to or signed up for as a part of your career. And, you know, you just can't talk anyhow or talk about certain things anyhow. And just knowing the time, place, space, who you're with, things like that. So, yeah, I think that's what I would say about that. But, I don't think career has impacted. I would just say it suits perfectly. It's a perfect marriage.
Fair enough. Now, let's go straight into it. Like from where you sit, working with the Big Four as a senior accountant and an auditor, what is this one thing you wish entrepreneurs knew or understood about their finance and their risk or risk management that almost never get talked about, or nobody teaches you?
I think just by virtue of, I might use the African African space, or just growing up, I would say there's not a lot of teaching that goes on, especially even in schools, about business management, financial management, finances, what it entails, and how you can build wealth, or all those sorts of things, right? So I think for me, just growing up and getting into my career, it's been a bit eye-opening, to start to learn some things and some opportunities that you could have taken advantage of earlier on. So if I'm speaking to an entrepreneur, definitely finance is a big part. That's why you're in business anyway, right? To make money. And managing your finances is very important for you. You might know that, but I think for most entrepreneurs, especially small business owners, it's more or less like just, let's get into it, let's let the money start to roll in, and then we'll set up the structure as time goes on. But I think in investing in setting up a structure, first off, is really important for any small business owner. And obviously you can scale as time goes on, as your business gets larger. But having the structure in place ensures that you have long-term success. Because sometimes you might have had what I would call mistakes, or things happen that now teach you that structure is important. And doing that, you might have lost, money down the line, right? So in terms of financial management, getting a good finance person, if you are not one yourself. So some entrepreneurs have the background and they're able to, impact that or insert that into their business. But if you are not one, you already know your strengths, right? So that you don't self be true. So you can employ an accountant to help you set up that process. And I was looking up actually recently, and there are actually grants for that for small business owners in WA. I don't know if a lot of people know that. You have, I think it's said about 10K or something, but I don't know what it is today, so we can search that up. But when I was looking, it was about 10K, and that gives you access to, get the services of either a lawyer or an accountant and all of that. And that just helps you set up your business in a right from the start. Another thing I would say that is very important is having a business model and a business plan. Now, as I said, most people just hear about this idea, sounds nice, let's get into it, and then we go run them, so to speak, right? But your business model really helps you to think about what the strategy of your business is. How am I going to, what am I trying to achieve, and how am I going to achieve it, right? So in terms of thinking about your business model, it's what value am I looking to create? Who am I creating this value for? How do I get from X to Y? That's your business model. Now, your business plan is the one that helps you to define goals that achieves that business model. So for the layman, an example of business model that you would have, you have your retailer business model. So that's where you buy from A, sell to B. Your manufacturer business model, I do everything from start to finish, raw material, produce, I sell, right? You also have, in the tech space, for example, a lot of subscription-based business models where you pay and I get access to a product or a service for a limited period of time, and things like that. So those are examples of business models, market-based business models as well. Amazon is one. Everyone is there, the seller, the buyer, all that, right? So just think about what am I looking to achieve, and setting that will help you. Part of your business model is also determining what my finance structure is going to be. Now, what I mean by that is, how am I going to capture my revenue? How am I going to capture my costs to be able to ensure that, I'm not spending too much money up front where I don't need it? Because sometimes, and I've made this mistake myself, even though I have all this knowledge, right? When I was opening my small businesses that I run on the side, it's like, oh yeah, I'll capture the cost later. I'm using an example. Okay, I'm using Canva. a paid subscription to Canva, right? So I know how much goes out on a monthly basis, but I'm not really capturing it as part of my business cost. It's just it comes out of my personal account, and I know that I'm using it for business, but it's not part of that, right? But eventually, at some point, I'm like, okay, look, you know this thing, so do it properly. That helps you also start to think, okay, I'm using Canva at this point. I want to pay for Canva. I want to pay for Creative Fabrica. I want to pay for all this. Is my business at that level where I need to pay for those 3 subscriptions? Am I making enough revenue to cover that? Because that then helps you to determine if you're already making a loss from the start, if you are putting too much in, where you have not even built the customer base to be able to fund those things, right? So that's why it's important that you think about your business model. And in terms of capturing this as well, most people don't think about maybe subscribing to getting like finance, like Zero, for example, or Mayo, softwares. So those are also quite important. Now, you might not start off with that. You can maybe start off with Excel. I also know a lot of people run away from Excel. It looks complicated, formulas, or whatever. But that's why you have access to those grants that can get you access to someone that can do that for you, or you employ someone in the meantime, or you just, brace it. I'm an entrepreneur, one-man business, I'm the accountant, I'm the manufacturer, I'm all that as I start off, right? So that's it on the finance bit. I mean, if you have other questions, we can go into it in a bit more detail. But then when you think about risk management as well, it's also captured within your business model, but it's where you start to think of, okay, this business that I'm going into, what are the risks that I could encounter as part of doing this? And examples of risk is you could have what you call inherent business risk. That's by virtue of you, for example, being a photographer, having a photography business. What are the risks by virtue of me just being in the photography business? What are the risks I would encounter? It's different from someone that is a nurse. It's different from someone that is maybe transport, dealing in logistics. That's what you call your inherent business risks. So you have to think about it. And as I said, it differs depending on the business that you're in. You also need to think about I'll call it financial risk right now. So credit management, cash flow. How does money come in? How do I manage what is going out? How do I ensure that my business stays liquid at any point in time? I also think about what I'll call political risks, for example, or legislative risks. So if the government comes out today and changes the law, how does it affect my business? Is my business riding on a particular law that is, currently on right now? And what happens if that law changes? I don't think this is an example, and I don't think it might really impact them, but it's just one that I thought of just now. You know how they're changing or bringing in a law like under 16 YouTube. Yeah. That's something YouTube needs to think about, because whether it be like it or not, a lot of them ride on teenage engagement, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all that. So is it going to be like a large, percentage of their customer base? Yeah. And how do they, react with that? How do they manage it? So that's an example of, a risk that a business might face. So yeah, that's
Thank you. Well, you've gone really into details. Now, you've mentioned a few things in passing, and I wanted to go back to those things. You talked about structure. I know you've also delve deeply into it again. So in quick succession, what is the structure? When you did mention set up structure right, structure this, structure that. If I'm setting up a business today, what are the structure, or what do you refer to as structure quickly? Okay, so what I refer to as structure is, once I've defined what my value proposition is, I know who my customer is, the systems that help me deliver that value to the customer is what structure is. Okay. So an example is, I have as I said, right, business on Etsy. I produce printables and all that. So my value proposition is to help, and this is an example, right, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Okay. My value proposition is to help teachers, homeschooling moms, and all that, to make their life easier, right, with resources. Now, what do I think would be valuable to them? I'm thinking about maybe a homeschool planner, homeschool schedule, the worksheets that the kids use,
Those are products, different product lines that I could offer, right? Now, the structure for me would be, what are the things that I need to produce those things? And do I have the skill set to be able to produce it? So I've had to do a lot of YouTube training. I've done some paid trainings as well. I've joined some like class memberships for me to upskill myself. That's a major thing. Now, the systems and the software that I also use to produce those things, what are they? Now, for you, for example, structure would be, do you have the right equipment to be able to do your business? How are you transporting things from A to B? If you are not able to, if you have 2 bookings, for example, how do you manage them? Do you let one go? Is that opportunity cost for the other? Or do I have people on the side that I can say, go for me here, just so I don't lose that business, right? Also, maybe a booking system, for example, because if people are calling you and they're missing, maybe you're busy, you're missing calls, they're not able to reach you, they could take the business elsewhere. So do I set up a booking system where they can just go on my website, click, book, and that way it operates outside of me. So those are examples of what I mean by structure. So things that can help your business run. Ultimately, the end goal is that your business is able to run without you doing every single thing, right? That is what I believe the end goal of an entrepreneur should be. You can step outside. It's not like this is not a case of maybe you are listing your business, for example, and it's a separate entity. No, it's like I can step outside of the business and it can still operate. I'm making money in the background when I'm there and when I'm not there. Yeah, so that's what I mean.
Further on, I want to ask this question. I guess a lot of people have asked me this question as well. I don't think I still have an answer to that question, but I'll put it to you.
Okay.
What is the biggest lie about money you think we're being told?
The biggest lie
about money? In your opinion?
I think there are a couple of misconceptions about money. One that I would say is maybe it's just a certain people that can have the type of money that I don't want to say bastard money, but
that kind
of money. And usually in the finance space as well, you always hear the 1% of the 1%. Now there's the 1% of the 1%, yes, because just by nature of how life is structured, 100% cannot be 1%, right? So there's still going to be that elite few. However, me as I am like this now, can I take the principles that those people have, used to get themselves there and do it? Yes, absolutely. But I think a lot of people it's not for me, fear, I don't want to put in the work. So a lot of it is just relying a lot of what the 99% have said, and that's why the 99% is not part of the 1%, because it takes someone to just step out of that thinking to say, hey, we can't continue like this, So it's when you get uncomfortable that you see results. If you stay comfortable within the 99%, and the 99% will keep you comfortable because misery likes company. So it takes you to step out and say, hey, I'm going to step out and do this. One of the reasons why I also stepped out, I'm not an entrepreneur by design. I'm not a business person. I always say by design. However, I'm finding that I can be that person to achieve my goals. I'm not going to achieve my financial goals or financial freedom by doing a 9-to-5. It's not possible. And you hear that a lot if you listen to, business people and all this money or financial podcasts. Yeah. You can't have one stream of income and think you're going to get financial freedom. It's not possible. You can't even do it with a 9-to-5. It's just how it's designed. It's not designed to make you rich. It's just designed to pay your bills. And at some point, your bills would even catch up to your 9-to-5, and then it's like, what's happening, right? And that's where the problem begins.
Do you think? Yeah. Sorry to cut you. Do you think we all have the capacity to step aside from the 99%? Do you think everybody? So you've just said something. We just need to be comfortable, and one of each, rather, you got to be uncomfortable and desire to want to, and then you opt out.
Yeah.
But in your opinion, Can anybody do that?
Can
I guess
anybody do that?
opt out of the 99% and aim for the 1%, to be in the 1%. Do you think we're all capable in certain way?
Are we all capable?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do you think so?
Because it takes, as I said, there are principles. You just need to apply the principle, and then you
Are
get
there
there.
people that cannot apply the principle?
If you don't want to, you wouldn't. So it takes you making a decision to make a change in your life. It's your life, right? It takes you making a decision. Now, let me caveat that by saying, can I make a decision today, switch things up, apply those principles, and might I make the same money as Otedola, for example? Maybe not, because I'm not in the oil and gas business. So I might not get the same results he's getting because of the business he's in. However, can I attain financial freedom for myself based on what I determine and the work that I decide to put in? Absolutely, yes. So that's why I say everyone is capable. Now, what you're aspiring to also matters. And life is governed by principles. And life is governed by principles. And that's why it's not restrictive to God blessing you for you to make it in life.
Okay.
People that are not Christians, they make money. They are living well. So it begs the question, what are they doing that you're not doing? And, you as a Christian, you're meant to have the upper hand, right? Because you have God on your side. You have, biblical principles, all that. So if you are doing the work or if you're doing the same level of work that someone that is not a Christian is doing, then you should be doing better because you have an upper hand, right? Because you're a Christian. But if you are just relying on the fact that God is going to bless me, but I just sit down and I don't make any decision, I don't do anything, how's it going to happen? So the reason why, going back to your question, the reason why I say everyone is capable of doing that is because it takes you making a decision and stepping out of your comfort zone to be able to change something about your life, right? And determine what is that thing going to be and how do I switch it up? And you make it. I've watched a lot of videos where you see younger people now taking advantage of the AI space, taking advantage of, tech space, and they're becoming millionaires quite young. It's because they are doing things differently than, what you just say, go to uni, get a 9 to 5, and, you're paying your bills, you're able to travel once a year or twice, and then you're fine. But they are taking a different route. They are stepping out of the status quo. They are doing something different. So you need to determine what is that thing that I want to achieve. What can I do innately within me to be able to achieve it? And then you do the work to get there. So back to your question, I think everyone is capable of getting there. Would they take the step? Maybe not. Would they all have access to the same resources? Maybe not. But it takes you to try and get there.
Do you think, this question I asked the previous guest about entrepreneurship and whether we are born or made. Can anybody become an entrepreneur? Because what you just explained to me, yes, they can take that step. That means you probably will want to go start a business or start something because you certainly can't do that doing that. You can't be in the top 1% on your 9 to 5. So you certainly need to step out of paid employment if you're employed or get into business somewhere or the other to get into that 1% club. Now, my question to you is, can we all be entrepreneurs?
Can we all be entrepreneurs? Yes and no. Yes, tying back to my other question is you can determine what is that value, what's that thing that I can sell. Now, as I said, I'm not innately a business person, right? But I've decided what I want to achieve and what is going to help me get there. Now, for any person, you need to look at it. What do I want to achieve? How can I get here? Now, in doing that as well, you also need to realize what your strengths are. So I can be an entrepreneur, but maybe I can't be the face of the business because I don't like interacting with people. Can I collaborate? Right? So I want to do this, but maybe I don't have all the skills. What can I do? So can I pay someone to do this for me? or like how it's kind of like a decision making give and take process, right? So that's why I say yes, you can, but in terms of how a business is structured and all that, what are my strengths within this? I have this business idea, or I have this idea in my head. How can I bring it to life? What do I need to do? Part of you also, determining what your business A to B is where do I fit in here? And what do I need to, do all these things? I don't have the skills for this, as I said. Maybe I need to pay a graphic designer to do this because I want to sell this. I have all these ideas. Can somebody bring those ideas to life for me? You can now say, okay, maybe that's going to be part of my business cost. I'm going to be running it in the background. There are also people that do like faceless channels on YouTube, for example. That's probably because they don't want their faces seen, but they also want to make money. You see, so that's something that they've determined. I really want to make money. This is one way I can do this. I'm going to step into it, right? So that's why I say yes and no.
So should we all be entrepreneurs? Should
we all be? I don't know, honestly.
In your opinion, should we all be entrepreneurs? Now, this is why I've asked that question, right? So earlier in my career, building businesses and doing stuff, I've often said to myself, I cannot imagine why anybody won't start a business. I can't imagine why Simi won't open a business. Simi knows how to do X, Y, Z. Why are you still working? And I say that to everyone I know. Like, I know you're good at this, you're good at this. Why not just start up something? And I often get, this, that, of course, excuses and things like that. And I didn't really understand why people would not want to do that. But after I've gone through what I've gone running the business or running businesses,
you say it's not for everyone, Abi.
Actually, I've come to that conclusion that it is not for everyone, and it's for a good reason. All right, I believe we're all different in our making, in our thought process. Also, our pain threshold as well differ. Some people can take more pain than the others. Some people can deprive themselves for long of certain things to achieve stuff. Some others, not likely. And so, in my own opinion, I don't think it's for everyone. But I would like someone to convince me otherwise. So I've put that question to you.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to what I said about determining how you want to reach your goals. Entrepreneurship is one way, right? So just taking it from the lens that you've brought now, I would agree that no, it's not for everyone in that sense. However, it still goes back to my question. What am I looking to achieve and how do I want to get there? What's the best way for me to get there? Is it through a business, right? Is it through doing something creative but not putting my face on it? So then I'll collaborate. I can also do investing. That's another way to make money without, necessarily owning all the risks or, doing the business myself. That's another way. So there are diverse ways, but if you just, my overall or overarching point is, if you just sit down and say, woe betide me, things are not moving, I'm not getting money, this, that, but you don't make a conscious decision to change anything about your status quo, nothing is going to change, right? So it might not be through owning a business in and of itself. It could be other ways that I just mentioned, right? Yeah. But you need to think outside the box and determine what is it for me and how can I go about it. A lot of people are very, financial literacy poor in that, as I said, it just boils down to how we've gone through school as Africans, and a lot of the exposure that I have is also through reading, just determining that, there's more, and then these people that are doing this don't have two heads, so they started from somewhere, so what can you do, right? It comes down to, I need to change something. What are those things and how can I go? So you seek knowledge and, change something about what you're doing. Beautiful. So, as you said, it might not be business in terms of, I started up myself because, I can't take the heartbreak, blah, 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 all that. That's fine. What else can you do, right? There's always something out there.
So long and short is, entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
It's not for everyone, but there's ways to still reach your financial goals.
My next question to you would be, in terms of starting a business, all right, what are the 5 key things? So if I were to start a business today, so if there's someone in the audience that would like to start a business, oftentimes we just think it's just buy your product and start selling, business has started. Going back to the structure thing. So if I were to start a business today, picking a business, what are the first things I need to do? So if I wanted to start a business online and I wanted to sell a product, digital product, for instance, or
that's a good example.
yeah, what should I?
Yeah,
where should
so
I
you
start
do
from?
your research.
Yep.
What are people interested in? So let's use an example. Let's say digital printables, for example, and there's a wide variety of what those are. But what are people buying these days, right? A lot of people are into the online space. A lot of people are designing things online, right? So I'm going to give examples of, as I said, they are digital planners because people are always on their tablets doing things. They want to, instead of carrying physical diaries up and down, they have digital planners that they're using, right? And this is not even restrictive to, let's say, a homeschool or whatever. A lot of people are using this. So do your research. Digital planner is one. Clip art is another one. A lot of people are designing things here and there, right? Canva is a good space. Pick up elements, design it, sell it. Stickers. What else? Digital paper. Like, digital is wide. So if we want to do that now, so I've done my research, for example, I've niched down or I've decided that this is what I want to sell. Who is my customer going to be? Now, in determining that, what I've heard and what I've seen that worked so far is don't just pick a customer for one product. Pick a customer based on, or I don't know if I should say pick a customer or pick a product, but try to think of everything that one customer might need so that they can get everything at your store.
Okay.
So that's why I said for my customers, for example, I'm thinking of what a teacher would need. She needs to determine what come up with her lesson notes. What will make that easy for her? How would it be easy for her to come up with worksheets for the kids? How the grading system, what tool can she use? Schedules, that's another thing. So just think about what that one customer can need, kind of like a life cycle, if you would.
Yeah.
What do they need from start to finish of their day to make their job easier? And can you make that, either you want to do it digitally or you want to do physical, whatever, right? So you have your value or opportunity or your product, you have your customer. How do I then create these things that I want to sell? So that's coming down to, what are the things that help me? So am I going to do it from, raw material, raw stage, so to speak? Is I'm doing it from scratch. So everything I do myself, or I'm just going to buy elements of this, elements of that, put it together somewhere, package it, and put it and sell. So that's a third thing. Cost, how much am I going to sell this thing? So that's also based on research, and there are a lot of research tools that people can use, right? So look at what people that are already selling are, putting the price that they're already putting this thing out at. And you want to also think about how you can get into that market, because usually for every market you have established buyers. So how do I penetrate this market? So do I want to I reduce the cost that I'm selling my product at just so that I can gain entry into that market, or I keep my costs the same as the people that are currently in the market, but I up the value. So if they are selling 10 things at $8, I'll offer 12 or 15 at $8. So people see that they're getting more value from me at the same price. They will be drawn to me, right? So determine the cost and think about those things. Then next is you want to see how are you going to deliver that product to your customer. That you start to think of a marketplace. So where am I going to put this product on? How do people even know I'm selling these things, right? And then I would say, how are you tracking your income and expense? So those are, I would say, key.
What about registration, local legislations, and how do you stay or manage your risk with regards to government regulations and all that stuff?
I would say you can start and register your business. Why I say that is because for a small business, right, especially one that you're registering even if you're registering it as a company, but there's a certain threshold that you get to before the government starts to really look for you or hone in on, oh, what is this person doing, right? So at that point, at the point of starting, you're not necessarily making money yet, or you are not making the type of money that government is, or I would say you've not gotten to that threshold. So you can still start off, but just ensure that you have it in the pipeline to do. Now, if you do it first or if you do it later, I think maybe I would say pros for doing it first might be just ensuring that maybe your company name or your business name is not taken. Yeah, I think that's it pretty much. And maybe getting an ABN, just so that you have those tucked away. And you can also use that for maybe like, what's it called? A bank account, a business bank account, if you want to put those in place. But aside that, to be honest, starting off, I don't see that it's really, I won't say important, but it's necessary to start off the business. You can start off the business and do that first, but just ensure that, and that's why it comes back to, tracking business expenses, all that. Because at the point where, you're even registering, it's going to ask you, have you started this business? Is it already a business that's in process? All that. So you want to be able to say yes, because if you say no, you can't even register your business name in the first place. So I would say you don't necessarily need to register to start, but you definitely need to register at some point and ensure that, you have all those things sorted.
So oftentimes people don't understand I'm looking for the right word now, the economics around selling or buying and selling online. Oftentimes we do underestimate how much we can make online. Especially, I find this interesting, especially for many of us that live over here where unemployment is not a thing. It's not something you really worry about. So you literally will get a job. If you just go outside, you're fine. And so not looking out for other opportunities to make money online, selling stuff online, open an online shop, even creating content as well, content creation. As a funny thing, today I was looking online and I came across this platform, Creator HQ. It's a platform in the UAE, Abu Dhabi. And all they do essentially is like an incubator
You're looking for Arab money.
like an incubator for creators within that part of the world and doing big things.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let me even see if there's any similar stuff within Australia. Not even WA, let's Australia-wide.
Australia-wide.
I really could find. Of course, WA there was none, which meant for me.
Is that something you want to look into?
I don't even know, but maybe I could look into it. But where I was really driving to was it's not something we're taking seriously as at today here in Australia, whereas there's so much money to be made within the creator economy.
Yeah.
I read somewhere online, the last 4 years, YouTube paid, guess how much? $100 billion.
I was going to say it's going to be an exponentially,
$100 billion in 4 years to creators. That's crazy money. So as many of us living here, we don't even know what that means. You understand? So what's your take on that? How important is it to own a digital presence, to monetize your digital presence and make money online?
It's important because, just like you said, right? Apart from even the money, the world is largely digital right now. And an example of that is you can be sitting in Australia and your client is in US, UK, India, Brazil, by virtue of you just putting out a product on a digital space. So you're not restricted. You've not restricted your business to just your local this thing. So obviously that gives you more presence. That gives you a larger customer base. Gives you more, name it, right? So I think it's very important. Businesses now, I think they're embracing it a lot more, definitely, because especially for those that have global presence as opposed to just local Australian presence, it's very important for them to be able to have that digital space online. Why I answered before in terms of me just running away from it is it's a two-edged sword, especially depending on how you also do it. As me just thinking about the creator, it's a creator's mind or a creator's perspective now, right? The online space can be very lucrative, but can be also very unforgiving, if I would use that word.
Explain.
Okay, what I mean by that is you can use the online space to make money, but be able to manage your personal privacy from whatever you're doing online, right? Because the internet doesn't forget. A lot of the things that some people are dealing with now are maybe things that they did when they didn't know better. And it just comes back to bite you, and then opportunities get taken away. And a lot of people also, why I say the internet space is unforgiving is because you have keypad warriors, opinions, left, right, center, all right. So if you're not one that has taken time to work on yourself and you're able to distance yourself from whatever is happening online and know that for the most part it's not real, you would suffer emotional, your emotional and mental
Isn't
health
that the
would take a hit.
Isn't that the same with working in a physical space? Because it's all the same. You're gonna encounter the same problems if you've not built yourself to the point where.
It's different online, I think.
Okay.
Yes, why I say that is you're working with someone physically. For the most part, most people might not say hurtful things to your face. You can see them. You're seeing them every day. So, and a lot of companies also guard against that, right? It's workplace bullying. You don't want to be reporting that someone is making you feel uncomfortable in the workplace and all that. So a lot of it, there are things that there are safeguards around those sorts of things in the physical workplace. Nobody's really guarding against what someone types on your comment section or whatever in online. No one is restricting that. So if you don't have, even if you're blocking, you would have seen it first before you block that person, right? So that's why I say it's a two-edged sword. If you manage it properly, whatever you're doing online can be, just like you said, right, a treasure trove of money. But you need to be able to manage yourself and your business properly in such a way that if there's any backlash or, if anything happens on the online space, you're able to take it, or you have distanced yourself so much from that it doesn't affect your personal. They don't really know who the person is behind what it is, right? So that's why I say you can take advantage of it all you want, but once you put a face to it, people are going to, it's that face.
You come after.
Right, you're going to come after if anything goes wrong.
Simply, I put it this way: the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward.
Yeah, so if that's a risk you're willing to take
for the big reward.
For the big reward. I mean,
I
mean, why not? I mean, why not? But just guard your heart, guard your mind, and just know that at any point in time, whatever praises you're getting, these people can flip one second after. So yeah.
Thank you. A further question, further to that would be, how would you tell a business that is about to fail by looking at their books? Or by looking at the business's book, how would you tell if this business is going to make it or fail?
As an accountant, there are certain metrics that you look at for businesses. Now, sometimes businesses can look like they might fail, but they are able to turn things around. And so I think for the most part, it comes down to those that are the helm of affairs. For the most part, although the metrics they are not lying, that's what it is the actual, right? But depends on those people making the decisions. They need to know when to maybe pivot, when to come to a realistic standpoint and say, hey, we need to do something different, else this thing is not going to work. I'll give an example. I worked with an explorer, what we call a junior explorer. So there are those that are looking to kick off an exploration business, but they haven't really what I'll call struck gold yet. So they are still in the exploration phase and doing that. But obviously it's capital intensive to be able to do that. So you need investors. So how do you keep going back to investor year in, year out to say, hey, keep, putting money in, but you come back with a loss every 6 months that you check your books, right? So at some point, it comes down to, do we really think there's something here? Or do we need to move to a different space? Because as you're doing those explorations, right, and this is just an example, you're doing surveys. So maybe it's just the thing of where I'm drilling down, for example, is not where the thing is. I need to move to a different location. Do I have the license for that? All those things, right? And for those sorts of businesses, you look at, do you have the right licensing, or a big one for that type of business, with if you've even gotten license for the first year, for example, or few years, are they willing to renew your license for you to continue with that space? If you can't, then your business is pretty much done, because without a license, you can't continue, right? But when you are going back to financial metrics, I would say liquidity is a big part of what you look at to see if a business is struggling or not. Because then it's like, are you able to meet your business expenses? It's not even necessarily about making profit or loss right now. It's about, are you even able to meet your business expenses on a monthly basis? Are you able to pay your staff? Are you able to pay for electricity? Are you able to keep your rent? Those sorts of things, right? So you're looking at that. Another thing is, if you have debts, for example, or loans that are keeping the business afloat, are you meeting your debt covenants with your bank? Are you meeting all the stipulations that they've given you? Are you able to pay your interest on a timely basis? Or have you gotten 1, 2 letters or warning from the bank? Because if they take away your funding, that's it. So a couple of things like that. You look at the asset base as well of the business. Do they have enough assets to be able to run? And this is, I'm using all these terms because large company, but bringing it to an entrepreneur could be much smaller. But yeah, those are some of the things that you look at. But yeah, it's, yeah, liquidity is, I would say, a big part of
I'll give
that.
you a scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
So recently, we wound down bail lending, all right? And it was a painful one. And I had my co-founder on the podcast, and we had a conversation about it. We operated for like 3 years. We injected quite a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And key conversations started having towards the end of the 3 year when we were thinking about it was, are we riding a dead horse? All right? Where for me, it's an analogy I use, oftentimes, share within the team, to know when to know if
It's time to...
the time to get off that horse.
Yeah.
And to start feeding that horse, to stop feeding that horse, rather, because the horse, if it's dead, you can't feed the horse back to life,
Yeah, true.
and things like that. Now, in your opinion, what are the key indicators, bring it down to small business owners or entrepreneurs, to look at, to tell someone like myself, now this horse is dead, get off this horse and start doing something else?
But you've already done it now, so you should be
No,
able to tell me how
so
you got to that conclusion.
It was a difficult one. It was a difficult one, but it was at some point you then.
So what were the indicators for you?
So for us, first thing was our expenses never went down. All right, the business wasn't taking over.
Yep.
So like you're investing this much money, and then at some point you're hoping for the business to
Be able to
become
keep up. Yeah.
keep up and take over some of his expenses and then balance out over time. But then it wasn't just happening.
Yep.
You understand? The other thing was also our advertising cost was really high, or customer acquisition cost, I would call it,
Yep.
was really high. We were spending a lot to acquire customers. And then with the timing, I did some analysis and, did some like some analysis, timing how much do we spend to acquire one customer, and how was the lifetime of that customer, how long does the customer stay with us.
And is this sustainable?
And it's sustainable. You understand? So it wasn't sustainable anymore. Where you spend this much money to acquire this customer, and this customer does one spend, maybe even two spend with two purchases, and then they are gone. And then you have to spend about that same amount to acquire another customer. Just like you said earlier, if you're acquiring this customer, what are the other things you can sell to this customer to keep this customer stay? So if you spend $10 to acquire a customer, you want this customer to be able to spend on that $20, $30, $50
Yep.
before leaving. So if a customer comes and spends $5, $10, and
Yeah.
then walks
It's
away,
not. Yeah. You've
it
made a
doesn't-
loss.
yeah,
You've made a
it's
loss of
a loss and
$4
things
right out
like
of the bat.
So
Yeah.
those were a few of the key things we determined was not, matching up. And I was like, okay, I think we need to call it. But that was our experience.
Yeah.
I guess from an auditor's perspective or from an accountant's perspective,
Yeah.
you might have a few other things to say.
Yeah, so that's why I said the important things about, when you're even starting off in the first place. And this is not to say you guys didn't do that, but obviously you tried and you saw it come to action. But it all goes back to that determining and doing your research upfront before you start. And sometimes it actually takes, putting your foot even after you've done the research and then just figuring, okay, maybe this is not what it looks like even from a research point of view, right? But going back to what is the value that I want to give, and do I have enough people that are looking for this? An example is a lot of people I'll use Etsy, for example. A lot of people are on Etsy, selling, and obviously they're sellers, they're buyers. You hear a lot of things that, Etsy is very saturated at the moment. Maybe you shouldn't go on there. There's, yada, yada, yada is already a lot. And for the most part, it's true. Etsy is saturated. But it's also, as much as it's saturated with sellers, it's also saturated with buyers. So it now comes down to you as an individual. What am I looking to sell on Etsy? And what's the market for it looking like? Is there an established market for this? And sometimes you might come and see, I don't know what I would use as an example now, but you might search, because there are research tools that you can use to analyze, right? So when you go on there, you type in a product, maybe you're thinking about it, you can come and see that there is 1 million competition already. So what that means is that there are 1 million people selling this. But then you look at those that are searching for this on a monthly basis, and you see, okay, is this worth going into? Because even though there are 1 million people selling this, but on a monthly basis, I can see that maybe an example is 100,000 people are searching for this thing on a monthly basis. And then, okay, if 100,000 people are searching for this, have there been new stores or new people come up in recent times that have offered this product and are also making money? Going to that, that's another level of research. So yes, there are a lot of people, there are people selling it, but recently, are there people that have gone into it and maybe done, I don't know, a variation of it, and they're selling this? That gives you a level of knowledge as to say, okay, I can actually still, go into this business or provide this, because it's something that is, an example is weddings. People are always doing weddings, so even though there are people that are on Etsy that you say, they're like, over 1 million sellers selling wedding invitations, all that, you still find that the level of people or the amount of people that are looking for weddings, they are still there. It's a market that it's never ending, right? Another thing I say is like food business never go out of, people are always eating. There's always, something to be bought. Although it's important how you do it though. But think about those sorts of things. That's why I say it's value. So what value are you looking to give? And are people looking for that? Is there an opportunity for that to be sold, right? And then the important part of it is, how do I do this to be able to ensure that I make profit out of it? So that's where it comes down to, how do I deliver this product? It also comes down to, how do I produce it? So am I going to just copy of something that someone is doing? The person already has established established buyers. So they're probably still going to go to that person if it's the same thing they find at my store. So can I do a variation of it that maybe might appeal to other people, test that theory too, look at it. The variation you're thinking about, is it there? But what's the competition there, So it's just those sorts of thinking that you need to think about. Now, another thing is coming down to, how much am I investing into this so when I start to track, am I putting in a lot more than I'm getting? At some point, I need to think about it. Why is this the case? I've already determined that there's a market for it. I've already determined that my product is viable. Maybe I got sales. but I still find that my cost is higher than my revenue. So do I need to tweak something to be able to up my sales? Do I need to maybe run ads? Those are decisions that you need to make as a business owner to be able to determine what you need to do for that business. But at some point, just like you said, I need to be able to come to and be realistic with myself to say, I need to either change something or this business is not going as I thought it would. So what do I need to do at this point? Do I want to try changing something first and seeing what that effect would be? Or do I need to say, maybe this is not it, can I pivot, right, or change? So those are just bringing it down to small business owner level. Those are some of the thinking. But putting in the time upfront to do that research will save you some level of heartache down the line because you've put in the work and you've determined that what you're doing is actually a profitable thing to enjoy and
where
get
does
into.
thanks for that. Where does a profit and loss statement and balance sheet fall in all of this conversation?
It falls into your financial management.
What is a balance sheet?
A balance sheet is a statement of your assets and liabilities at any point in time and your capital at any point in time, right? What are your assets? Your assets are those things that help you generate income. What are your liabilities? Your liabilities are those spendings that they also help you generate income, but yeah, they're the things that you pay to make it, to keep your business running, so to speak. Okay. Right? I'll give examples. So an example of your asset is cash that you have in your bank, an equipment that you have, your lights. They're part of your assets because they help you with maybe your car. If you have a car that's transporting you from point A to point B for your business, that's part of your asset. Any monies that you're expecting from someone that you've provided a service to, you call it a receivable, it's your asset. So that's just a few examples of your assets. Your liabilities, on the other hand, is your amounts that you pay to your vendors, for example. So those people that you buy things from to be able to run your business. So electricity is a liability because you have to pay amounts you owe, pretty much. So if you're leasing something, you need to pay that on a regular basis. That's a liability. If you have a loan that you took to be able to purchase your assets or do anything with your business, that's a liability. Equity is amount capital that you put into your business in the first place, right? So that could come in different forms. It could be amounts you put in, or if you have people that have invested in, that makes up your equity. So that's what your balance sheet pretty much it is. Your profit and loss statement, on the other hand, is your statement of revenue and expenses, right? So I'm going into accounting class. So.
Keep it simple. Yeah. And I'll tell you why I've asked this question, okay? For many entrepreneurs, small business owners particularly, this question about balance sheets, profit and loss statements, assets, as simple as those might sound, it's still confusing. I mean, for me, it sometimes does confuse me. I run
accountant extraordinaire like you.
And I know a lot of people I've had, even those I've had business dealings with.
Yeah.
And I was saying to one of our businesses, I was saying to her, look, you need to understand this thing called balance sheets. So oftentimes people mistake the amounts they have in their bank accounts for the actual money they have.
No.
And then they make decisions based on that.
Yeah.
And I was saying to this person, look, you have 100K in your account, doesn't mean you have 100K.
Sure.
You understand? You need to go into, so I set up Zero and then we use Zero to monitor. You need to go into this accounting software and understand the money you actually have, because in that, if it's been balanced or reconciled, it will then tell you, actually, out of this 100K you have, 50K is for tax. So you can't be looking at the 100K, that the 100K is just. So
true.
How important is it for entrepreneurs to understand these simple terminologies, and where are there tools that can help,
You've mentioned some of the tools, but definitely there are tools. And to answer the first question, how important is it? Very. is part of your business structure that I referred to earlier. If you are not able to track, just like you said, you would find out at some point that, I've misjudged what I've gotten myself into. And that's why I always advocate for doing the work up front before you really embark on. And when I say doing the work, it doesn't mean don't start your business because you are not able to track. No. It's more or less like as you start to grow, just make sure that it's as simple as even putting the amount of people that have bought something from you and the amount of money you said on an Excel spreadsheet. Just A, paid this, B, paid that. I paid A this, I paid B that. It's as simple as that, at least for starting out. But just ensure that you have a system to track, what it is that is going in and what is coming. What is going out and what is coming in. So back to your profit and loss statement. So your profit and loss statement is one that tells you, in layman's terms, if you're making a profit or a loss. How do you make a profit or a loss? If you're making a profit, that means the amount that is coming in, revenue, the amount of money that you're making from your business is more than the amount that is going out in costs. So admin costs, selling, production, all those things, water, light, electricity, all that is part of your cost, right? Your expenses. And then your revenue is pretty much, in layman's terms, I've sold something to A or I've delivered a service to B. This is how much they are paying me for it, right? You can drill down, depending on the business, into if you are doing a gross profit, net profit, all that, right? But that's, in layman's terms, what your profit and loss statement is. Now, even if your profit and loss says that you're making a loss, it doesn't necessarily mean that your business is not doing well. It just means that there are some decisions that you need to take. Maybe cost management is not good, and you need to tweak things there. It doesn't mean that the business is failing. However, you don't continue making consistently make a loss and say, oh, my business is good because my asset business. No. But if you've made a loss once or twice, because we've seen that in the business space, where, in fact, there's one company that was already deregistered of ASIC because, and they sold it for, I think it was $1 or something. But that business today is like 500 million. And because someone bought it and revamped. So I always say it goes back to the people at the helm of affairs, right? So, but that's it in layman's terms for business owners. Now, is it important? Yes, very. And as I said, maybe not everybody will understand how that works. So are you willing to pay someone to do that service for you? Because it depends on how much you value it. But I think it's something that people should pay attention to.
I don't think you need to pay someone. Yeah.
And that's you, right? But some people are not willing to understand how those tools work.
The basics, understanding the basics. So this is it, all right? For an entrepreneur or a business person, personally for me, to understand the blood that flows in the business, I need to know, if I don't know anything, the profits, the loss, the balance sheet.
Yeah.
I need to be able to read it at the simplest form.
Yeah.
I mean, there are high-level interpretations.
Yeah. Sure.
But then being able to look at it to know how much we've come, how much coming, what's going on, what's tax
how much you've grown as well.
And things like that. I think, and I guess one of the things I usually tell people, if you work with me, I would need to tell this, you need to watch these things because it is very important.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't think you can outsource that part because you can't be running a business. I don't know where your money is coming
You
from.
can outsource the day-to-day of the accounting, but it doesn't mean you remove yourself from it.
But you should know it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you can outsource someone doing it for you, so you're not the one entering the invoices.
No, of course.
So that's what I mean by outsourcing, not the knowledge part.
You need to know.
You need to know, definitely, and you need to review it. Even if you have someone doing that service for you, you need to review it on a monthly, periodically, for you as a business person. So you don't just leave it and say, someone is taking care of it for me. Accountant, tell me how much I have, and that's it. No, you need to be in the detail of it, because then that helps you feeds your strategic decisions as well as a business owner. because if you understand it, then you come to some point where you can be able to make business decisions. Oh, can we invest in more equipment at some point? Because, okay, the business can take it. We have the capital base for it. Or even though maybe I don't have enough cash for the business in itself to do that, what are other strategies I can use to raise cash to be able to do this? So it helps. And that's why businesses have what you call monthly updates on like those sorts of things, because management needs to know what it is.
Thank you. Where does tax come into all of this?
Tax.
What's your knowledge of the tax laws at the simplest form?
I have knowledge of the tax laws, but it's at the simplest form.
At the simplest form.
Some accountants really love tax, to be honest.
I mean, they are tax accountants.
Yeah, I'm not one of them.
One of those. If you were to advise a business...
But the importance of tax and knowledge of tax, very important.
Importance, knowledge, what percentage?
Percentage of tax.
What is my...
Yes. So it's important for you to know.
Sometimes, like I said earlier, you make all the money, you see the money in your bank account, and you think that is all you have, and then you just go on the spending spree.
Yeah.
Not realizing that a good percentage of that money will go into either employee tax, income tax.
If you have employees,
if you have employees,
you pay
income tax. If you're, of course,
sales
you're making
tax
income,
as well.
Many taxes that would come into play there. So, can you explain each of this?
Okay. Yeah. In the simplest form, I've been saying. All right. Just like you said, right? There are those tax levels, or what I would say, tax brackets that each business needs to pay attention to. For every sale that you make, there's sales tax. That's why if you're buying something, you see that they've added 10%, whatever percentage it is for whatever country you're in anyway. But for the most part, most places I've seen is 10% sales tax. There's also what you call income tax, which is every business needs to pay that. Now, for a registered business, it's company income tax. I think it's 30%. That's separate. However, for an entrepreneur that is just one-man business, it's slightly different, because that's tax, especially here in Australia, it's calculated as part of your income. So you fall under the bracket of from 0 to 18 and above, 30 cents of year. So you need to know what that is. Now, if you also have employees, you would need to you need to pay tax on their behalf, and keep information of that as well, because they would need it for their tax time. What other tax? There's fringe benefit tax, but that's getting more into investments and all that. I think at the simplest level, though, what you should focus on as an entrepreneur is just making sure that you have the knowledge of the fact that, just like you said, even though I've made revenue of like 50K, I still need to determine what tax bracket and the percentage of that will go. And for the most part, try to calculate it as accurately as possible. Obviously, ATO will help you, balance it up wherever you need to. You need to ensure that you are remitting your sales tax. And then, if you have employees, I think for the most part, those are the main three that you need to focus on starting out. Now, as your business gets bigger and all, you can start to find out more about what other things there are with regards to tax. But on the flip side as well, the good thing is you can also take advantage of tax incentives that the government has for small business owners, and, tax write-off or asset write-off if you buy stuff within your business and all that. But it really needs you to keep accurate detail and information of your business to be able to back up whatever it is you are saying. And then, as we said, I think it's 75K or 65K, if I'm right, that your business needs to get to when it starts making either revenue of 75K or something, that then you need to start remitting your GST. 75,000. So if you've not gotten there, you might still be exempt, although you still need to pay your income tax, but you might be exempt from like your GST till you get to that level. But if you don't have the knowledge of it, you might have been making 75K for 5 years. Trust me, 80 will come for the 5 years. And it will hit you once. So you need to, yeah.
It's important for, I do think it's important for businesses to understand this.
Yeah, I agree.
One key thing is these are debts, like bad ones. There's a business I was reading online on the news, was a couple of days ago, was a fitness company that they obviously were going bankrupt because they owed the A2 for over $12 million. And then in my head, I will ask, how
do you get there?
How did you get to $12 million debt? You know, obviously, I don't know what happened there, but something obviously would have gone wrong.
Yeah.
Someone hasn't kept record of how much, and they've just been maybe spent. I don't know the details.
Yeah.
But for you to have gotten a debt notice of 12 million, then you know what have happened there.
Yeah.
And, you know, they almost went bankrupt because someone obviously had to come in and bought over the business. And, of course, the kind of business will sell them for cheap.
I saw that
And then
recently.
take over the debts and things like that. So it's very important for businesses to be
I
aware
agree.
of all of these because this is Australia.
They'll come for it. A good way that an entrepreneur can also do that, I advise, is make provisions for those things, right? So especially the income tax. I mean, if you've not gotten to the 75K threshold, you might not necessarily worry about GST, but you need to have that knowledge that I need to, pay attention to this. But for your income tax, make provisions, right? So if you, and this is where you also get into the detail of how your business is running, so you can make projections of what you think. Maybe the first year we made 5K in revenue. This year, based on the strategies we're implementing, we're expecting that we'll grow this way, using past data, obviously, but also being futuristic. Maybe you're estimating that you would make, let's say, 15, 20K this year. Determine what that would be on the tax bracket. And let's say if your tax is going to be, for example, let's say 5K, make provisions of that 5K for 12 months. So 5K divided by 12, I don't know, 600 per month. Put it in somewhere. Save it aside as that. Because that way you can be able to make that payment easier, knowing that that's there. Even if it's more or less, it's not going to be so far away from what you've already put aside. But if they come at the end of the year and you're already happy that, hey, hallelujah, I've made 20K, for example, and 80 just comes and says 6K, oh yeah, bring it once. It will hit you because you've not thought about it or made that provision. So I always advise that you make, even as an entrepreneur, you can make provisions, put the money aside and yeah.
Thank you. I've always wanted to ask you, as someone that's lost my dad as well.
Emmanuel.
Tell me about your dad.
Emmanuel, no.
And I'll tell you why I asked that question.
Why?
All right. Now, whatever I do today, I always say thanks to my dad.
Yeah.
Unconsciously. Because the first camera I had.
He bought for you?
No, he didn't buy. It was he used it in his early years.
Okay.
So he used to be a
So
photographer.
you have it in your blood?
Yeah, unconsciously, to be honest. So I picked up this camera, this thing called, I didn't know what it was, but it looked nice. He told me what it was.
Yeah.
I remember as kids, we used to go to a studio, used to have a studio. That was the only memory I had. We took some photos. And then I came across camera. I think I was probably 14, 15 years old when I saw that camera. And in my head, I thought, thinking about it, and I thought that was, a big thing for him. He kept it for over 10 years. And so I stumbled on this and I asked him.
So did he do photography professionally?
He did it professionally,
okay.
yeah. He did professionally. When photography wasn't paying the bills, but he left it as soon as he got a government job.
Yeah.
But he had the camera there, and so I took it. So that essentially started my career as a photographer, and this year probably, I don't know. There've been some breaks here and there, but I would say 2005 to date. That's how many years? 25 years. 20 years.
20
years. So I would comfortably say I've handled the camera for 20 years now.
Wow.
You understand? And so when he passed, going back to some of those memories, thinking about some of those things, I remember going back to the day I heard he passed, and I sat down at the old studio, I locked myself in there, and I cried.
And that's what you're trying to get me to do here today.
You know, because him, as a person, has had great impact on my life.
Yep. Yep.
Tell me about your dad.
And I cannot say no. My dad. Okay. I always say that for my dad, his children are his greatest assets. And that's because he invested and he poured into each and every one of us. Me personally, I've always had a good relationship with my dad. And yeah, that's obviously father-daughter, you always have those few butthead moments. But I think largely, even working where I work today actually, it's because of him, or I'll say through him. He didn't pressurize me or anything, I don't think, into doing accounting, but he really encouraged it. And that's because a lot of the work that he did as well was around that space. So I think for him, just realizing that one of his kids loves numbers or, is interested in that
He's an
was...
accountant.
No, actually. He studied computer engineering or computer science, one of the two. But he just found himself, Nigeria now, you do one thing, you end up somewhere else. So he found himself in that space. So he ran several businesses actually. So he used to do like training consultancy for companies in Nigeria. And then on the one hand, he had a kind of like an association of business shareholders of businesses. So he would help people invest and, register, ensure that they're getting dividends, and also represent, I won't call him a broker, but I don't know what to call it. I'll just call it an association because but it was registered. And the businesses knew, like, represent other shareholders or a shareholder sect. So they would always attend EGMs, dissect their financials and all that. So even from when I was actually in, I think, senior secondary school, he would hand me like financials of companies and say, just look at it and tell me what you think about, the numbers there, or what can you interpret, or, things like that. So he really got me into thinking about it. And obviously, when I finished uni and was looking for a job as well, he just said, Big Four is a good place to start your career. And all that. So before then, I didn't know any Big Four, anything. I just studied, and then I know one way or the other I will get a job. But I didn't really think too much strategically into how I wanted to start my career and all that. But I think he always had that in mind anyway. And thankfully for him, I was able to, not thankfully for him, but he got me to apply for one of the roles. And yeah, I got it, and I'm still there today. But generally, he's a go-getter. He's a go-getter. I'm not able to say was, but he doesn't back down. He never backed down from a challenge, from confronting situations. He would face it head on. There are stories you hear about maybe people having maybe financial challenges, for example, and then they say the father ran away. Nah, that's not my dad. He would rather borrow to ensure that that thing is sorted than, leave it. And then one major thing, a man of integrity to the core. His name, you cannot soil it, irrespective of whatever you're offering. If it's not the right thing, if it's something that is going to bring issues down the line, if it's something that is going to cause his family shame, he would not, no matter how much you're offering. And there were a few offers. So his integrity, top notch. Family man, he took care of his kids. So many stories that I can share, but I'm not going to go into details because, yeah, it's going to get me into my emotions.
What is this very moment, one moment you would love to cherish forever?
I don't have one. Someone has asked me that question. I don't have one. I can't pick one. But if I'm to talk about one specifically, and I can't go into details about it, but there was a time where I made a very huge mistake in my life. My dad shielded me 110%. And that's just, I'm not going to cry.
It's okay if you, it's okay. It's all right if you.
But
yeah.
that's the kind of man that he was. You can't, like you can't come close to, like, you know how they say lions, they protect their,
Cubs.
yeah, that's him, or that was him. But yeah, that's one that I always, if I never knew that, you know, when you're growing up with your parents, sometimes you think that they hate you because they are instilling values and all. So if I ever thought that, oh, my dad didn't love me, I knew then that, no, I can't doubt it. So yeah, that's if I'm to talk about one, but there's so many.
If you had a question for him, what would that question be?
Why now? Why now? Why go now? That's my question. Just reliving the final days. I keep saying, because I spoke with him 2 days before, and I keep asking my siblings, I'm like, there was no sign when I was talking to him as to what's going to happen in the next couple of days. So I'm like, if that's one question, why? What switched in your head? Like, what was the decision-making process that went on in your head that you decided that, oh, okay, now I'm ready to go? And why didn't you tell anybody? That's my question for him. Why now? I don't think there's any age you ever get to anyway that you're ready to lose your parent, but I just feel it's too early. Yeah. So.
Think he was proud of you? Your accomplishments?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Did he ever say that to you?
Yes. He did. Actually. He did, and I know he was happy with where I am. Yeah.
How has this moment shaped you as a person?
Losing him?
Yeah. Life, meaning,
That's it now.
money.
It's just, I think for me, a couple of days after, I was just thinking, so what's the whole point of it? You know? And that's not to say don't aspire to anything or don't achieve, but I'm like, eventually, you're going to leave it all behind. Because, everything that you're working towards, that you're, for want of a better word, tighten to your chest, at the end of the day, you go and then that's it. Like, they're not going to pack, you're not going to stuff, even if you stuff money inside you, like, they can cut it and bring it out, you know, like, so I think for me, just, not like I didn't have that at the back of my mind before, but it's just brings into perspective what really matters in life and investing in those things, and also making sure that it's not necessarily about the things that you acquire, but what people can say about you when you've left. Because you can acquire things as much as possible. And some people are very ruthless with how they deal with life. It's just go, 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 you know, money, whatever. But at the end of the day, money is not going to save you from death. Death is a natural part of life. So what else are you working on while you're doing that, right? So what's your relationship with people? How do people see you? What legacy do you leave behind? What values have you instilled in other people? How have people been better by, coming in contact with you? Those are the things that matter. Another thing I would say is just make sure people really know who you are and what you stand for. As you're living life, you can't be one way to in this place and another way to this place. The testimony about you needs to be consistent across board. That's what determines your character. That's what people will be able to say about you. So you can't say, oh, it was nice in this place, but then another person was like, it was not nice to me, and all that. So make sure that what you are is consistent across board, and it's good that people come in contact with you. Not people say, the day I met him was the worst day of my life. No. Or the day I met her, I never want to relive that day. No, that's not what life is about. The things that matter are not in your bank account, are not in the physical things that you can see and hold. They are in the ephemeral things. And I think generally just make sure that your eternity is sorted. Whether we like it or not, you have to deal with that. So make sure your eternity is sorted.
It's interesting how we chase life, thinking that we're going to live here forever.
Yeah.
Sometimes we think we're immortals, but
Yeah.
we're just mortals.
Mm-hmm.
We're just mortals.
You think that you're invisible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, sometimes these things get into our head and we think, think too big of ourselves. We think we are
overestimate your importance.
Yeah, we think we're indispensable. While these thoughts were coming through my head the other day, I was like, we had the president that died a couple of weeks ago, a month or two ago.
And in one day,
he was forgotten. I can't even believe he was even dead.
Yeah.
But he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In closing, Simi, what's for someone watching this, what is the one thing you'd like them to have taken away from this conversation, if anything at all?
We've talked about a lot of things, but I think I'm going to wrap up by saying that everything we've talked about is important, but there are more important things than that. So while you're working on that, or while you're working on ensuring that, your stay here on earth is worthwhile or makes sense, ensure that the other things or more important things are also taken care of. Don't neglect it. So what I mean by those are your family, your character. Build character along the way as well. Don't build business, don't build or chase money at the expense of character. It's your character that will sustain it. And also ensure that you've made a decision about where you're going to spend eternity. Now, I would hope that most people decide to follow Christ. But if you decide that you don't want to, just be sure that you're okay with where you're going to end up. Because it's one of two places, right? So, yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Simi, for coming on this podcast. Thank you for joining us and becoming the CEO.
Thank you.
I have two last things to do, rather.
Yeah.
First would be, someone left a question without knowing who that question was for. And the question here that was left for you was, how can we support the homeless and vulnerable people in our society? How can we support the homeless and vulnerable people in our society?
I would say you don't need to have a lot to do that. But it takes little drops make a difference. So they're all around us, right? So decide how you want to be a part of the cause is what I would say. So Why I say that is because you can see a homeless person and hand them a few dollars to get a meal, but it doesn't necessarily take them away from the streets. It just feeds them in that instance, and that's it. And if you hand them the dollars, you'd expect that to get a meal, but you don't know what they're going to use it for, right? So it could feed a habit. So the way I might recommend is there are government initiatives that do this. Now, there's funding for it, but I don't know that there's a lot of will I say organizations or enough interest or people that want to take this up. But the government is always looking for people to be able to help them to deliver. Yeah. So if you're really passionate about it, you can collaborate with the government, get the funding from them, but you do the physical bit of it. But that's there for us to make a difference in that space. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Simi Olu-Ojo, for joining us on Becoming a CEO.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing your heart. And I hope you had fun just as much as we did.
I did. I had fun.
Yeah.
Even though you tried to get me to cry at the end, but God
strong.
said no.
You're strong. You're strong.
Yeah, but I did have fun. Thank you.
I hope the experience was worth it for you.
Yeah, it was definitely.